Hi knitters and yarns collectors, how are you? Glad to see you this morning. My name is Karen. I'm the hostess of this little podcast called Recreational Knitting. It's where I show you guys what I've been knitting on, what I'm hopefully finishing, what I hopefully haven't been buying, and all the yarny stuff that I can think of to share with you. Sometimes we go on yarn tours, beautiful yarn shops. Sometimes we've gone on little mini tours of some of the states that we've been in. And today is going to be a little different. I'm coming to you from Portland, Connecticut. I always want to say Maine. Portland, Connecticut. This is the Connecticut River behind us, and we are currently camping down there. We have been fortunate enough to get a couple, 4 nights here camping while we visit some of Luke's family that live in the general Hartford area. So Hartford is about a half an hour north of us, and we had a great, now if this guy comes and laughs and does his thing again, I've tried this already 5 times. He's gonna make me mad. I don't think he's gonna do it. Oh, maybe he will. Anyway, we have visited with several family members up to this point, and tonight we're meeting a large group of his family at a restaurant and visiting with them. So that's nice. Across the river is Middletown, Connecticut, and that is pretty much in the middle of the state, as you can well imagine. Today is going to be a little different. I'm not going to show you any finished objects, number one, because I don't have any. I'm not going to show you works in progress. This is really kind of a question and answer session. Some of you have put questions up for me in the last few weeks, and I'm going to try to answer those. And I found some more shawls. But this is the final episode. Yeah, maybe. Anyway, welcome to you who are new here. I hope you like what you see and give me a thumbs up, subscribe, comment where you're from. I love hearing where everybody lives. And if you're an OG, welcome back. I do appreciate each and every one of you. When I started this podcast, I wanted to keep myself accountable and to maybe share some things that might inspire, all those things. And I think I've accomplished that and way more. We will be having a 750 subscriber giveaway. So if you're not yet a subscriber, go right ahead. And now they're making more noise. Yay! Let's hope that's all there is. Okay. All right, let's dig right into it. We're going to do some questions. A lot of you have asked, what was my favorite national park, since that was our goal when we came out. We started in December 2019 to explore at least the majority of national parks that you can see in the lower 48. We really never had plans to go to Alaska, although we did some research and we certainly weren't sure, but we thought we would stay in the lower 48 states. And that's what we've done. And of course, COVID hit and we ended up like everybody else in a mess. And here we are. We're almost 3 years in and we're getting there. We were just at the Cape Cod National Seashore, which is in the Wellfleet, Orleans area, which of those, if those who don't live in the United States, it's the little arm that goes up on the Cape. So I'm Massachusetts, this is the Cape, and it's around in here, and it goes up to Provincetown. That was our latest. There are no national parks in Rhode Island, where we were for 2 nights over the weekend, and now we're in Connecticut. So, the most asked question was, what was your favorite national park? My husband and I both agree that it is Yellowstone. And Yellowstone is kind of in a league of its own. If you go to Yellowstone, try to book a week to really adequately see everything that it has to offer. You can do it in 3 days. I wouldn't recommend even bothering if you can't stay at least 3 full days to see the park. It's that vast. The wildlife was our favorite part. All the different land masses that you see, I don't even know what they're called, like the Old Faithful. There's tons of those within the park. Just an amazing place to be. We stayed there 9 days, and we were ready to go at the end of that, mainly because it was so congested. It was last August when we went, 2021, and it was the first summer that people felt that they could actually travel. Things were open. We were wearing masks, but most of the locals were not, and the COVID rate was pretty high. But that is our favorite by far. Now, when I look at my, okay, let's just knock Yellowstone out of that because it's in its own league. I have to say that there's a variety that come in there. White Sands, New Mexico. It's beautiful. If you can think of the most white, sandy beach that goes on and on and on and on and on for acres and acres and acres and acres and acres, without the water, that's it. It's made, it can be seen from outer space, and they employ a whole bunch of snowplows to keep the roads open because of the drifting sands. The sands are really silica, but it's something very scientific. If you're that interested, you can look that up. I have since forgotten it because it's been 2.5 years since we were there. It was about one of the first or second parks that we were in. It is just so unusual, and there are no land masses within the park. It's just white sand. And we let our dogs unleashed. It was February, right before the pandemic. You're not supposed to do that in national parks, but we were way away from people, and we let the dogs just run and run and run and run and run, and they had a ball. It's beautiful. It's definitely worth the trip. And while you're in New Mexico, Santa Fe and Taos and the mountains are there, and you're very close to Texas and Mexico. So it's really kind of a jumping off point if you want to do like one national park and see some other parts of that region. It's near Alamogordo, Pennsylvania. No, not Pennsylvania, New Mexico. Beautiful. And then my third park that gets right up there is Glacier National Park, which is in Montana. I've lost all perspective being 3 years out. Glacier National Park starts with a tour, a road tour of the road to the sun, and it goes all the way up to where the timberline is, and it's simply gorgeous. Crystal clear streams, crystal clear lakes, beautiful foliage, absolutely gorgeous. Very close to the Canadian line, so those Canadians that are watching, if you haven't been down there, might be something to think about. It's gorgeous. And near that is North Cascades, which is not far at all. So those are my 3 top favorite national parks. And another question that people have had is, what is your favorite campground to go to? I have to answer this. Hi, I'm back. Husband said we're going to Hartford to visit Auntie Cookie, and that's what we did, and about 3 hours later, here we are. Still beautiful out there. We still have boaters. Hopefully not a whole lot of noise. I can't guarantee it. I think the next question that I was going to talk about was, what is your favorite campground? Well, we have a lot of really nice spots that we have stayed, but we prefer to what is called boondock. Boondocking is where you go out, typically on government land. Typically it does not cost anything. Sometimes there's an entrance fee, but not often. And it's government land, and they're established places where you can there are established places where you can camp for free, and you just, sometimes you need to apply for a permit, sometimes you just pull up and do your thing. We have a 38-foot motorhome. In our motorhome, we have a 100-gallon freshwater tank. We have, I think, 40 gallons of black tank, and gray water is 50. So we have plenty of room to go out for approximately a week before we have to go dump black and gray tanks and get fresh water. So we prefer to boondock, and we've been out in the middle of the desert. If I knew how to insert pictures, I would insert one here or here, but I don't know how to do that. That's my next tutorial. But you're in the middle of the desert, usually, or in the middle of the woods, and you are out there by yourself. There's no power, there's no water, there's no anything, there's nothing. It's our favorite. We like that probably the best of anything that we've done on this whole trip. That being said, there's also lovely national and state parks. National parks in the U.S. are, for the most part, difficult to get into. Number one, closed during the winter, mostly. And 3, they're smaller. They were mostly built during 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And at that time, most people had what is called a travel trailer, which is what you see pulled behind a truck. And of course, they've gotten bigger and bigger and bigger over the years. But most of those original were 20, 25 feet long. So a lot of the campgrounds are for 20 to 25 feet long. So it's hard to get a 39-foot motorhome into a spot. That said, some of the newer places, you can do that. There are also private companies that rent space within the National Park Service, and basically, and I don't want to generalize, but I'm going to generalize because that's what our experience has been, where it's basically a parking lot with water and electric hookups. And those are some of our least favorite. We prefer to be out in nature, such as this, although we have the guy mowing the grass now, so yeah, it's all good. But our favorite is boondocking. And the favorite place that we have really boondocked, in my estimation, was a place in Nevada, and it's called Snowbird Mesa, or known by the locals, Poverty Flats. You can camp out there indefinitely. Some people, that's where they live. They get their mail or whatever sent to the local post office, and there are acres and acres and acres and acres and acres of this mesa where people park their rigs, and you can be 300 feet away from them. And of course it's in Nevada, so it's really snowbird. People from Canada, the upper states, Minnesota, Michigan, come down there and spend their winters down there so they don't have to deal with snow. It's free. There's a place in town to get water, dump, grocery store. Las Vegas is about a half an hour from it. And that really was my happiest place camping on this whole trip, believe it or not. You could look out and see forever. And we're from the East Coast, so West Coast geography is just so different. And you could look at the mountains and see the layers of rock, and it was just beautiful. It was beautiful. And the fact that we were out there during COVID made it even more remote, even though there were probably more people there. So, yeah, that's my favorite. Another question I asked, what's your least favorite national park? I think I'd have to say Hot Springs, Arkansas. Those of you that don't know about it, it's a former kind of in the 20s and before hot springs were everywhere. People would go to get rid of their illnesses and their alcoholism and their drug abuse and whatever they were ailing from at that point. And they would go to these hot springs. We were underwhelmed. We did a hot springs adventure in one of the hotels, and we were just underwhelmed. We'll just leave it at that. There's not a whole lot else to see in the town. We did camp at the national park there. That was a nice campground. We enjoyed it. Rode our bikes into town to get ice cream. But underwhelmed was a good word to use. Our least favorite place to camp. This is where my husband and I don't see eye to eye, because he loved this place. We went to San Diego, and he was all excited that we were able to get into the state park there, which is called Silver Strand State Park. It's right on the beach. And it was exactly like a parking lot. Like, here's your stripes, don't go outside them. Had water, and it had electric and stripes. And because we have a Mini Cooper that we haul with us, we did have room to park our car. But other than that, we would have had to park our car probably a half a mile from there. It was very crowded. People were not very nice. The park hosts were not very nice. I'm an ocean swimmer, and I think it was in July of last summer that we were there, and it was too cold to get in the Pacific, even in San Diego. So, one of my least favorite. Another one was one of those corporate campgrounds within a state park at Big Bend State Park, National Park in Texas. Loved the park, hated the camping. Another question that was asked, what's the best attraction that you've gone to? Well, considering that COVID really put on everything while we were out, we did get to see a variety of things. One of my things I wanted to see was a rodeo, and I never did get to see that. Just never happened in all that time. But one thing that I thought I really wouldn't like, not that I wouldn't like it, it just wouldn't be that wonderful for me, was Princess Paisley Park. Amazing. If you get to Minneapolis, make sure you head that way. It's worth every penny and more. I'm a Prince fan. I'm not a fanatic, but this was definitely worth it. Truly, you got to see the man behind the music and all the musicians that walk those halls. It was pretty cool. That was one. And the second one was the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. It was amazing. The Beatles exhibit was there. I guess they change exhibits every month or two. And the Beatles were there. And I could have sat there all day and just listened to all the Beatles, and they were showing a lot of the documentary that was on Apple TV. I think it was Apple. Yeah, I think it was Apple. Well worth the price of admission. Another thing that you've asked was what was the worst thing about the whole trip? And I have to say that it's the lack of medical care. I had a hip replacement, my knee popped out, just the normal stuff that, somebody in their 60s needs to do. We have a doctor for every body part. So that was the toughest thing, I think, about all of this. And just the everyday stuff, going to the laundromat, hated that. One of the fun things that we did 2 years ago, 2020, we were one of just a few people that saw some preseason baseball games, because right in the middle of the preseason spring practice, everything shut down. We got to see, I think, 3 games in Phoenix before nothing. So that was kind of fun. And then since then, we've been to 4 different games just this year. We were in Chicago, Milwaukee, Cleveland, and Detroit, which was fun to do. We tried to get into Fenway, and the tickets were $185. They did come down to 125 the day of, when I guess they couldn't sell them at 185. No, it's not happening. So that was fun. So those are some of the questions that you've had for me. Put below something that you might have thought of since watching this. I'll answer it or I won't. Now remember last time I said that part 3 of the shawl tour was over? Well, it's not. I was going through my closet and I found 2 shawls on a hanger just hanging there by themselves. Don't know why they were, but I thought I'd share them today. So I think this is the end. Okay? I do know a little bit about what they are, what they're made of. That's a new one. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I showed shawls. I believe it was in Arkansas. I showed you part 1. Then a couple weeks later, I showed part 2. I think that might have been in Indiana. Last week, I thought we're done with shawls, right? We're all done with the shawls. Not really. 2 more. Okay, so this is really the end. Okay, the shawls die. That's the end. This is a hitchhiker that I made early on in the trip with some shovel ball. Is that how you say it? Here it is. Let's get the right. No, let you see the color changes there. I love this pattern. I love long shawls. There's a lot of ways that you can style this, but I really do. I do like the colors. I had this in my stash when I started this trip, so this was one of the early ones that I cast on. I think that we were actually in Big Bend, Texas, very early on, like January 2020. So that's an oldie but a goodie. I've only worn it, I think, twice. And the next one is by Hoki Locatelli, and it's the Hipster. And I'm not sure if this is the light one or the regular one. I think it's the light, Hipster Light. And this is made with some Malabrigo, don't know what kind, but these are those crazy stitches that everybody has fun with. I personally thought they were fun. I had never done them before this shawl. So, and there's the tassels that I put on. And this is, I've worn this a couple times, just over before COVID hit. So, those are the last 2. I don't think you're going to have to see another shawl from my closet. I know you're happy about that. Anyway, I think I'm going to insert a tiny tour of a yarn store here across the river in Middletown. And it really is a tiny little shop. Very lovely owner. Has limited yarn, but it was still nice to go in and talk to a fellow knitter. She was knitting herself a dress for the mayor's ball, which I think is quite elegant. So anyway, I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful day and that you're knitting something that gives you joy. I hope those of you that need rain get it, and those who have had too much rain, it stops. Climate change is real, and we're seeing the effects all too often. Those of you in heat, I hope it cools down. Those of you who are in the, ooh, look at the boat. Those of you in our southern hemisphere and it's very cold, I hope you have something wonderfully wool to wrap yourself up in today to keep warm. I'll see you next time. Knit happy. Bye-bye. you.